Greetings. Thank you for joining. This is 2A Tonight. I'm Mark Halperin, another one of our regular looks, maybe semi-regular or irregular, at 2028. This is going to be an open seat. Donald Trump will not be constitutionally eligible to run for re-election as president, although he could run for vice president. But in any event, we expect there to be open nomination fights on both sides, particularly on the Democratic side. I'm still a big believer in Vice President Vance maybe securing his party's nomination pretty easily. But we're going to bring in three of our four regulars. We had one folk who couldn't join us, but three of our four regulars who are great chroniclers of this and students of it. And we'll talk about who is doing well, project a little bit forward about who might do well, and see if we can't create on the Democratic side a tier or two regarding the presidential sweepstakes for 2028. And we'll talk about the vice president and the other Republicans who might run. Alex Castellanos, who will join us, has a different point of view about where that nomination fight could end up than the conventional wisdom. So grateful to you all for joining. If you've got questions about the 2028 presidential campaign and you're here on the two-way platform, we welcome your participation and we'll get to your questions on that topic. So if you'd like to ask about the presidential race 3 years away, please raise your hand. And if you're watching on X or YouTube, don't raise your hand, and no smack in the chat. And as always, use this as an opportunity to learn from Americans you disagree with, or really people around the world. Peace, love, and understanding, even as we discuss one of the more contentious issues in our lives, which is who the next president of the United States might be. So we're going to start by talking about the Democrat who's clearly done the most to position to potentially be the nominee so far, and that is Gavin Newsom, governor of California, who on Thursday made a major announcement about a proposed fall November ballot measure that would temporarily do away with California's independent commission used for redistricting its U.S. House seats and try to create 5 more Democratic seats in the state that's already got a congressional delegation that's overwhelmingly Democratic. Here is Newsom, 201, talking about his long-expected plan.
We can't stand back and watch this democracy disappear district by district all across this country, not just in Texas, but in Missouri, where J.D. Vance went just a week ago, in Indiana, in places like Ohio, in places like Florida. We need to stand up, not just California. Other blue states need to stand up. We need to be firm in our resolve.
All right. That is Gavin Newsom. Again, we're going to start there because I want to test out a couple hypotheses with our guests. Alex Castellanos, Republican strategist who's worked on his share of presidential campaigns, and then the authors of the best-selling book, Fight Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House, available now everywhere you get books, Amie, Parnes, and Jonathan Allen. Thank you all for coming back. Amie just published a piece about Gavin Newsom in the Hill. 203, Newsom, no regrets about fighting Donald Trump. This is, as Dan Turntine pointed out this week on the morning meeting, you have Gavin Newsom fought Trump on the fires, in the aftermath of the Southern California fires. He had a very successful trip to South Carolina. And on paper, he's a Republican, a Democrat with a lot of advantages in terms of fundraising and social media game, name ID, television savvy, etc. So, Amie, welcome all three of you. Thank you for making time. Tell us about your Gavin Newsom piece, what it involved, and how you see him currently positioned in this field.
Well, Mark, I first want your reaction because I think the last time I was on, you said there's no way that he runs.
I still don't think he's running.
Really?
Yeah, I'm the only one, but I think in the end he won't. But I try not to let that squash the conversation, because every Republican and every Democrat and every reporter I know thinks he's running. So I accept the premise, but when he doesn't run, you'll all be calling me to explain that you knew too.
Yeah, so I think the other day he and I chatted, and I think that he was basically making the case that he made today, essentially quoting Abraham Lincoln, saying when things are call for new things, we have to try new things, we have to do new things. And And that's what you saw on display today. There was a split screen moment, obviously. You have these ICE raids happening outside where he's speaking. He's kind of loving that. Inside, he's speaking about redistricting and saying that he has to take this on. And he's always sort of positioned himself as a fighter. And fight isn't just it's not just the title of our book, but it's kind of like the word of the moment in democratic politics. So I think he's kind of taking on the fight over a party that is looking for a leader. He's kind of stepping into that void and into that spotlight. And I think that it's exactly where he wants to be as he positions himself looking forward.
Amie, before we go to Jonathan, explain to me this. Given who he is, given the job he has, given the weakness of the field, why aren't people saying this guy is, Hillary Clinton 2016? Why aren't they saying that he is the obvious front runner for the nomination?
Well, you have polls that indicate that Buttigieg is ahead, for example. An Emerson poll came out earlier this month that said that he's the front runner. You have Kamala Harris in there. There are a lot of people kind of vying for this, and he's not very popular in California. There are a lot of people that I've spoken to who don't really like him. A lot of people outside of California view him as a progressive and couldn't support him. And he's trying to sort of make that play, I think, for outside voters, for people who don't know much about him. Obviously, trying to play into what Democrats want in the moment to appeal to them for the primary. So I do think that he's doubling down, and I do think that he's running.
John Allen, are you in DC?
I am, and I'm about to get pummeled with a thunderstorm. So after this question, I'm going to move under my deck.
Okay. Pummeled with a thunderstorm, or based on the look of your location, you could also be carjacked there.
I'm told that.
Yeah. John Allen, I thought Amie did a brilliant job of laying out the pros and cons of Gavin Newsom front runner. I'm just amazed at that he doesn't have more buoyancy under the circumstances. Because ironically, I'm the only one who thinks he's not going to run, but I also am much more bullish on his chances than most people are if he does run.
Yeah, look, I would say, just looking at the thing right in front of us to start with the redistricting, this is an easy opportunity, a layup for Gavin Newsom in terms of a Democratic primary in 2028. And if you want to be president of the United States, the first thing you have to do is win your party primary. This is something that unites Democrats. The people who vote in Democratic primaries tend to be the ones that are paying the most attention, much like in Republican primaries, tend to be the people paying the most attention. And this is him fighting for his party, and not just for his party in his state, but his party across the country. When you talk to activists in southern states, they can tell you all about partisan redistricting and what a problem it is for them. Why Democrats have one district in Mississippi and one district in Alabama and one district in Louisiana, despite having large populations of Democrats. So, on the front end, I think it makes a lot of sense for him to do this as something to prepare for going forward for a presidential primary and largely to be popular within his party. He will run into some of the same problems in a general election that Kamala Harris did, namely the positions he took in California that are to the left of where the mainstream of America is. And I think the question for him is he able to be Teflon on some of those things? Is he able to? And I think he's a very charismatic guy. I think there's some things that he's kind of gotten away with over time, that would fell other politicians. So to me, the larger question is, can he run from California? Can anyone run from California after having electoral success as a Democrat or New York and win the presidency? But, if you're putting bets on who's going to win a Democratic primary, he starts out in a pretty good spot.
Yeah. Alex, I want to ask you a couple questions in a minute of the Republican perspective on Newsom. But John Allen, just one more for you. And then if you need to duck in, of course, do that. Sometimes it's always important, and we all know, to distinguish between being a strong candidate for the nomination and being a strong general election candidate. Regarding Newsom as a nomination candidate, I don't see much analysis of his relative strength and weaknesses with the what are called the groups, right? Like he's, will he be strong with Hispanic voters, Black voters, young voters, the Obama coalition of the ascendant? On paper, he should be. And yet, when I talk to people in those demographics, I don't hear a lot about Gavin Newsom.
Yeah,
So I'm wondering
he's an
where are his strengths and weaknesses regarding winning the nomination, leaving the early state factor aside, because we don't know what the early states will be.
I think it's an untested question, Mark. And to your point, it's not like I hear, the CBC or the CHC, Congressional Black Caucus or Congressional Hispanic Caucus, talking about how great Gavin Newsom is for those communities. On the other hand, he doesn't start with a weakness the way that, say, like a Pete Buttigieg would, where his support among Black voters is negative, right? I mean, and I don't mean he's underwater. I mean, try to find a significant number of Black voters who are for Pete Buttigieg, and you will be on a long goose chase. So he has a lot of work to do to make up. And I think that's true for a lot of the candidates, that they don't yet have, a Democratic coalition put together. Gavin Newsom's never run nationally before.
Right. So there's a well, let me just quick follow for any of you, Amie and Jonathan. What do we know about his support from the groups in California? The members of the Black Caucus in the California legislature, do they love Gavin Newsom? Does he do very well with Hispanic voters in California? Do we know?
When I talk to people out there, it's very lukewarm, actually.
Yeah, that's
there are a
my
lot
impression.
of people. Yeah, there are a lot of people who don't really care for him, wanted him to resign throughout his term. You can see that when he posts anything. And so I think that's problematic for him. But I think he's also turning away from California in certain ways and trying to pivot and appeal to people in other states with his eyes on 2028, obviously.
Yeah. So Alex, there's a school of thought that says this concept of, within the context of a nomination fight, that this concept of electability in a general election is hooey, that voters don't vote on electability. If you look at the history of the Democratic Party and their nomination process, they've almost always, and some would argue always, nominated the most electable general election candidate in terms of the most moderate, that they're not nominating the person on the far left, suggesting that some category of Democratic nomination of the Democratic electorate does care about quote unquote electability. And that's usually, if you look at history for both parties, it's heightened as a factor when they don't control the White House. So let's just stipulate, even if you don't agree, that electability is something. Then I go through modern history. I start with Bill Clinton. I'll start with Mike Dukakis, okay? Because I usually start modern history Reagan forward. If there's almost always, and I think there may be one or two exceptions, there's almost always been a consensus amongst the Republican consulting class and the Republican politicians, is a certain Democratic nominee formidable? Republicans did not think Mike Dukakis was formidable. They did think Bill Clinton was formidable. So far, you agree with me, right?
Yep.
Okay. They did not think Al Gore was formidable.
Right.
All right. Like consensus, like bring it on. You want to nominate Gore, bring it on. They did not think John Kerry was formidable. Same thing. Bring it on, right? Okay. So that takes us to 2016. Hillary, I think, was mixed. I think some of you thought she was. The preponderance of you was bring it on. Happy to run against her. But I think some were mixed. And same with Joe Biden. I think most people said bring it on, but not all. And of course, he did win. So then we get to Gavin Newsom. I can't find a Republican in California, in Washington, in Baton Rouge. I cannot find a Republican consultant who is the least bit worried about running against Gavin Newsom. I'm wondering what you think of that and why that would be.
I think that's more true than not. I think it's a little bit like dating your sister. I think Gavin Newsom could win the nomination because at some point you're going to put him in a room with all the other Democratic contenders and he's going to look pretty good. Gavin Newsom versus an AOC, Gavin Newsom versus the Mondami wave. I think the establishment is going to look around and say the hungry young cannibals in our party are going to kill us all. If you saw Hakeem Jeffries yesterday when he was asked about Mondami, he looked like somebody fired a gun behind his head. He was petrified. And the establishment is going to want a candidate more like them. Businessman, California. Yes, he's been crazy left, but he's somebody you can work with. He's not an ideologue. I think he can run and win. And by the way, vampires suck blood. Politicians run for office. There's no world in which I see that Gavin Newsom would not run. He's got a shot here. And by the way, this whole redistricting thing is perfect for him because, to the great title of the book, Fight, this is a fight he can have and not get crossways ideologically in the party, right? This is us versus them, save democracy. We're all on the same side. This is not Israel versus Hamas. This is not we're going to run grocery stores or we're not. This is a safe fight for him. So it's smart politics, and he's a tremendous political athlete. I would not underestimate him or his ability to grow. But you're right. Right now, Republicans look at him and say, San Francisco Democrat, another one? Awesome.
Yeah, and they underestimate him. They call him dumb, and he's
Oh,
not.
no.
And they
Oh,
call
no.
him unskilled, and he's not. But one more, Alex, for you about Gavin Newsom. If you were a consultant to the RNC, should they be trying to muddy him up now? Should they be trying to take him down now? The way the Democrats failed to take down Bush in '98 and regretted it?
I think we've got enough to do. I think we've got a little bit of work we can do on our side of things. So, you know, God help us. I'm not sure we can manage our end of things, much less somebody else's. And that
I couldn't
process is
disagree.
so
Couldn't disagree more.
complex.
Couldn't
That
disagree more.
process is so complex.
Yeah.
You
All
know,
right.
he's not, he's got potential, but in the end of the day, I think he's got almost more potential for the primary than the general. The party that said, took a look at Bernie Sanders and said, "Ooh, that Joe Biden guy's looking good," might do the same with Gavin Newsom
Yeah.
in 39 months.
All right. We spent a quarter of more than a quarter of the program on that guy. Let's talk about Wes Moore. He basically said he's not going to run. Do y'all think Wes Moore is running? Yes or no? Amy?
Yes. Yeah.
No,
I've always thought he was going to
okay.
run. I mean,
Jonathan
yeah.
Allen?
Yeah, I think he's running. Remember, Barack Obama also said he wasn't
Yeah.
running.
So did Bill
And
Clinton.
many others have said they
Yeah.
weren't running until the
Yeah.
minute they were.
Yeah. Okay. Alex, you think he's running?
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll shorten this up. Raise your hand, the three of you, if you think he'd be formidable and potentially a first-tier candidate if he runs. Raise your hand. All right. Not John Allen, right? John, you didn't raise your hand?
I'm not there yet.
Not there yet. All right. Here's someone in the John Allen camp, to say the least. Speaking earlier today, this is political analyst Donald John Trump, 202.
If I may, the mother of a 15-year-old California boy was briefly detained at gunpoint in a case of mistaken identity. The LAUSD superintendent says that surveillance video shows armed agents wearing police and border patrol insignia. Given the National Guard, the Border Control, ICE agents, they're not trained in local policing. What specific steps are you taking to ensure that young people are not put in harm's way with these types of operations?
Yeah, what they are trained in is common sense, and they're very tough people. And they have great common sense, and they are highly trained. I heard the mayor of LA was saying, "Oh, they're not trained this way." I heard this character from, where was he from? They talk about him as a candidate. He's got no chance. The governor of Maryland, I watched him this morning saying that the governor of Maryland, yeah, they say maybe he'll be a president. He's not presidential timber at all. But I heard him today talking about how the National Guard or the military is not trained in police, but they're trained in common sense, and they're trained in not allowing people to burn down buildings and bomb buildings and shoot people and all the things. They've done a great job. Again, if we didn't send them,
okay, that's enough.
very
John
important,
Allen,
if we didn't send them
what's your
into
hesitation to not join your two colleagues in raising your hand? What are the metrics there, or the factors?
A couple of factors. One, as a native Marylander, my bar for seeing a Marylander as a presidential contender is pretty high. To the extent that California has liberal governance, so too does Maryland, but it's a much smaller state and much less nationally prominent. I think so Moore will have to deal with that. I think that he again is untested. Just hasn't been out there enough. As you know, as Alex knows, as Amie knows, running for president of the United States is a full-on athletic performance. And we just haven't seen that yet from him. It doesn't mean he won't get there, but I think he's got he's got to hit some stepping stones before he gets to the point where he is among the most formidable candidates. Now, in his favor, if he can figure out how to make a connection with South Carolina voters and Mississippi voters, and I was talking about this a little before, there's sort of a reverse deal in the Democratic primary. The most important places to win are in Democratic primaries are the supermajority Black congressional districts where you can get tremendously asymmetrical numbers of delegates out of them. Even though in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, those states are not competitive in general elections. So if you're Wes Moore and you can figure out how to make a connection with those Southern voters and get them to believe that you can win a presidential election at the general level, then then you become a very serious and very formidable contender. I haven't seen that yet from him.
Amie, what makes you say he is in the first tier potentially?
He's the person besides Gavin Newsom that I get the most questions about when I talk to audiences, when John and I have been out, people have asked me about him directly. When I speak to strategists, there's something intriguing about him. A lot of it is he Barack Obama 2.0? And I cringe at that a little bit because I don't want it to be just, about the color of his skin, but he's like young and energetic and as John said, can appeal to a lot of Black voters, and that's how you win a primary. And so I do think he runs. I think there's a lane for him. I think he falls into that fresh blood category that a lot of Democrats are kind of thirsty for right now. And for all those reasons, I think he runs.
Alex, you were one of the first Republicans that I talked to in 2015 or 2007 and 8 who said this Obama guy is going to be hard to stop because no one wants to cheer against the sunrise. Wes Moore, besides sharing his race, obviously shares a lot of his, infectious enthusiasm, his optimism, his toughness, coupled with the optimism. So, is Wes Moore in the same category that if he hits it just right and it turns out it is his time, that Republicans would be find it daunting to beat him in a general election?
He's a good horse, but he's not Secretariat. I'd say he's a B or B minus level Obama, but with military credentials, Rhodes Scholars, author. I don't think he's the Black candidate in the race. I think he's the candidate for white guilt-ridden liberals in the suburbs. I think he's more of an establishment candidate, and so I think he's got a shot, and I think he's a B-level candidate who is a top-tier candidate because the rest of the field's so damn weak.
Yeah, Amie,
Mark,
go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, that's I think Alex is making the kind of opposites, or making the point that I was trying to make with, if Moore can become a candidate that Black voters get behind, because I agree with Alex that he is at moment an establishment candidate, somebody who is loved by white liberals in the suburbs in Maryland, which is why he's the governor of Maryland. And so the question for me, inside Maryland, yes, you've got tremendous support among Black voters, but will he become the candidate of Black voters? Will anybody become the candidate? And if somebody does, will it be him in the 2028 Democratic primary? I think that's still left to be seen. We saw Democratic voters in 2020, saw Black Democrats flock to Joe Biden, and many of them in part because they saw him as so moderate and so liked by white centrists and potentially capable of beating Trump.
Yeah, Amie.
Yeah, and I think John mentioned this earlier, but like someone like Pete Buttigieg has a huge problem with Black voters still, something that has haunted him from the past. So there's definitely a lane to appeal to Black voters in this election.
Yeah, and of course we'll have to see what the early states are and how significant Black voter support is. South Carolina will almost certainly be an early state, so it'll matter to some extent. Amie, asking about national security credentials, Donald Trump never served, but he carries himself like a tough guy, a strong guy. Strength is one big part of his brand. And if you look at the people the Democrats have nominated, typically it's been people who have either had national security credentials of some sort or come across in their policy positions on foreign policy as tough. We're in a very uncertain time. And I'm wondering the extent you think that's something that general election voters or nominating voters will care about. And does the fact that Wes Moore served, is that a big deal? Is that a potential differentiator for, with the exception of him and Buttigieg, there's not a lot of national security experience in this potential field?
I think it could be, obviously, but I think voters really, when I talk to voters, when I'm out in the field talking to regular, normal people, they just want someone that speaks their language mostly. I think that's why Donald Trump succeeded, because he had a message, he amplified that message, he connected with voters, he gave them what they want what they wanted. And so I think that that is sort of what Democrats really need to be. And I think that's why Gavin Newsom, I think, is sort of stepping into that role in a big way because he's already out there sort of speaking that language, playing the role of fighter. And I think that's appealing to a lot of people right now.
All right, I want to ask everybody here one more, well, three of you, one more question about the Democrats. Then we switch to Republicans, and Alex can talk about his view of the field first. Then we're going to take your questions. So please, if you want to get in on the conversation about 2028, raise your hand. Go around, Alex first. One or two Democrats who may run, who we haven't named, who you think have the most potential right now, knowing that the whole thing could change. But what are one or two Democrats you think we should be focused on, along with Moore and Newsom, who all three of you agree are worthy of some focus? Alex, you first, one or two.
I think the Democrats are such a mess that almost anyone could pop. I don't think it's Gretchen Whitmer, but I still think Josh Shapiro could transcend because, yes, he's on the wrong side of an increasingly pro-Palestinian party, but sometimes somebody gets out there and just, like Barack Obama and charms the world. I think he might be the guy.
Okay, Josh Shapiro, Jonathan Allen.
Yeah, and to Alex's point, I don't know that we will be looking at Gaza the same way, 2 years from now that we are now. So, certainly 2 years ago we weren't looking at it the same way. So, I think Shapiro is perhaps the X factor in the Democratic primary. We'll have to see. But I would also throw out there Ruben Gallego and Alyssa Slotkin, the newly elected senators from Arizona and Michigan. They won in difficult states for Democrats in an election that Trump won their state. So I would look at them in both. And Gallego, to your point before, has military experience, but like a lot of the Republicans with military experience, he is allergic to foreign wars right now. And I think most of the country is, whether you're on the right or the left, is allergic to foreign wars.
Amie, one or two.
Let's not sleep on Governor Bashir. I think he is an interesting candidate. A lot of people are bringing him up to me also. I think he's someone who could excite people maybe in the South. I can say this, I think, because I'm a woman, but the number one thing that a lot of people told me the day after the election was the Democratic Party has to elect a white man next time. And people were very open about it. I heard this across the board. They really feel like Democrats need to go back to that, and that is the way that they can win. And so that's why I think of people like Governor Bashir as a top contender.
Don't be surprised if he runs for Senate. I said it on the morning meeting. I'll say it here again as well. I have real doubts about a lot about his potential candidacy, including if he can raise the money. I think he may have a big problem raising money in all three categories: small dollar, super PAC, as well as bundling. All right, let's talk about the Republicans. Alex, the piece you wrote, I got by email. Is that published place that people can read?
It's on my Twitter feed.
Twitter. All right, Alex on Twitter has a piece about the Republican field, and I think that the headline is, although I'd quibble with some of his down ballot choices, the headline is Alex seems more bullish on Marco Rubio than on J.D. Vance for being the nominee. Right? That's about who's going to be the nominee. It's not about strongest in the general. Is that correct?
I gave them both 4 stars, but I think Rubio is seen now.
But is it ranking for who's going to be the nominee, or who would be the strongest general election candidate?
Nominee.
All right. So you make them equal. And before you get into why you like Rubio so much, and it's really a Cuban on Cuban love letter, to be honest. But if Trump endorses Vance, it becomes moot, correct?
If there's one voter that matters more than all the others, he's on Pennsylvania Avenue. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're being higher on Rubio, presumes Trump stays neutral.
Presuming Trump lets this run out and they fight it out on stage.
Yeah. All right. Tell us why you're so high on Rubio, please.
Well, I think Rubio has taken the mythic journey. I think he's the guy who was humbled, humiliated in 2016. He used to be the wonder boy, the comet, the future of the party. And then he was destroyed. But he didn't vanish. He disappeared into the wilderness and he came back uh, to to become the Secretary of State, to be Trump's foreign policy hawk. And he's not talking and tweeting about things. He's actually in the fight and he's serious. I think one of the hardest things in politics is to mature, to grow up. And Rubio, I think, has. He used to be a candidate who reinvented himself every few months, looking for what's popular and public approval. I think those days are behind him now. So I think that kind of toughness combined with his economic optimism, we're Americans, we can do anything. He's got the gift of gab. I think that guy could absolutely, if there was one thought about Rubio, I think he's turned his scars into armor. And that makes him strong enough to be the next generation advocate for Trump.
Amie, are you as high on Rubio as Alex is?
I am. And, John and I reported in the book that Donald Trump really kind of respects him, I think, a little more, like wanted him for the role of Secretary of State, thought that it was a bigger role, obviously, than Vice President. I think it sets him up really well.
John?
I mean, I think Donald Trump likes two cats fighting in a bag. And so he's going to keep this Vance Rubio thing going as long as he can. I think what Alex said about Rubio is accurate. Something I would add, and what Amie also said is accurate. The thing that I would add about Rubio is, and I'm sure there are people on the left that would disagree with me, but he's just not. I think he's just not as detestable to like the center left as a lot of the other people in Trump world are, and I think that that's something that is helpful, potentially in a competitive race, certainly in a general election. If Donald Trump endorses J.D. Vance, all bets are off, as Alex said. But I don't know. I mean, the longer he goes without endorsing J.D. Vance, the more opening there is. I remember I asked Jay Carney, who was the White House press secretary for Barack Obama in 2014, whether Obama was going to support Joe Biden for president. And Jay gave me the runaround. He refused to answer the question. And at that moment, I concluded that that Hillary Clinton was probably going to be the Democratic nominee, because Barack Obama told the country twice that Joe Biden was the next best person to be president and was not immediately willing to get behind him. Right. I think, the case with Vance should be the same. I mean, Trump, with any normal political rules, would at least not leave such an open door. And so it'll be interesting to watch.
And Mark, I think John is right. Also, because what gets the best ratings? It's going to be Donald Trump calling these people up to his office and sending one contender down in the elevator every week. You didn't make it. He's going to be the host of this game show. So I think he keeps this going. And Vance has a tough slot. We've just seen Kamala Harris try to balance independence and loyalty. Can you do that? Vice president is the world's worst job. How can you be top dog if you've been second banana for 4 years? Robin to Batman. It's even though behind the scenes he's a mass power, he's doing a terrific job. He is a brilliant spokesman for Donald Trump's America. He has reinvented himself as this advocate for the working class. I mean, he can do it. It's the opportunity's there. He's certainly leading today, but he's going to have to earn it. It's not his to give away.
The conventional wisdom is it's tough to run for vice president, for president as vice president, which Alex just said, for the reasons Alex said. The conventional wisdom is you're second banana. People don't take you seriously. They don't think about you as presidential timber. Well, let's look at the sample space. George H.W. Bush ran for president, and he won as vice president. And he had all those problems, the wimp factor, cover of Newsweek. he overcame it and he won. And he had a pretty contested primary against a pretty distinguished group of people. Now, you may have
But
lucked out. Yeah.
Mark, he was Ronald Reagan's third term. There was no alternative.
I understand, but there was. Bob Dole ran, Jack Kemp ran.
He wasn't Ronald Reagan. He wasn't.
Okay.
It was
Okay.
different.
And then I guarantee you, people like to challenge me on this. I guarantee you more people went to Florida on election day in 2000 intending to vote for Al Gore than for George W. Bush. And so there's another sitting vice president. And by the way, neither of them had the enthusiastic support of their boss. Neither Ronald Reagan nor Bill Clinton enthusiastically embraced their vice president. And yet both those guys effectively won the White House. So I think it's wrong to say it's hard to run as vice president. And I think Vance, chair of the RNC, treated with extraordinary respect by the cabinet, by the president, a very active, politically active staff around him who are allowed to maneuver him around, unlike what Gore was allowed to do, or Bush was allowed to do, or Biden was allowed to do. So we've never seen in any of our careers, we've never seen a vice president this empowered. Yes, sir.
One thing that is a little different, though, I think all of that's true, Mark, and the guy's brilliant. The guy goes into the lion's den in the news media and comes out smelling like roses. But vice presidents don't lead, they follow. It's hard to build that brand for 4 years. And then when you come out, do you know who he is? Right now, there's a sense you know who Rubio is. He's matured enough that doesn't give a damn. He's just going to do what he thinks is right, support the president. There's still a sense of political ambition in Vance's world that is unsettled. He has kind of gone over to the Trump team and supports it 100%, and that's great. But you don't have the same sense that he's been around long enough that you really know who he is. He can fix that. He can tell us who he is. There's no doubt. And look, I'm not downgrading him. He's up at the top of the list, I think, with Rubio, but he is incomplete.
Amie.
I agree. I totally agree with Alex. It'll be interesting. I think Donald Trump will keep both of them in, as we said. I think he loves to sit back and watch a fight play out. And I'll be curious to see how he maintains his relationship with the vice president as his term continues, and where that relationship stands as it inches closer to 2028.
John.
I'm looking forward to Vance and Renee Zellweger on the "You Complete Me" ticket. For those who remember Jerry Maguire. Yeah, I mean, look, I think Vance is, as good of a number two as we've seen in terms of the various political skills in recent years, and he's young, which I think is helpful. We're about to have a major generational shift, likely passing over my own Generation X, where we basically moved from the baby boomers to the millennials, and Vance is representative of that younger generation. And I don't know which of the Democrats will fit into that mold well, but just look at the population numbers for the various generations. I mean, I think Vance is well placed to try to run from the vice presidency, but I agree with Alex that is a tough thing to do. And I think history suggests that we see them win. I think I saw Matthew Bartlett ask a question in the in the side chat there. Who was the last vice president to win 2 terms after serving as vice president, to win 2 terms as president? I can't think of the answer to it. I wish I could. Richard Nixon won 2 terms and he had been vice president, but it was a break between them.
Yeah. All right. Great conversation. Let's do the same thing and then go to the community questions. I know from Alex's piece who he's got in mind, but Alex, who are 1 or 2 Republicans who you'd also look at?
I think Sarah Huckabee Sanders could be a rock star. I think she has got just an authentic appeal from the heart of America. I think she's Donald Trump's daughter without the Trump name. So I think she could stand on a debate stage with a room full of guys in blue suits and distinguish herself. So I think that's somebody to watch. Underrated.
Amie.
It's a good question. Come back to me because
All right.
I'm a little bit
You're in the two-man mode, as many people are. Jonathan
yeah.
Allen, do you have a third name or fourth name?
Yeah, I mean, Christy Nome wants to run so badly. um, and she is on television all the time. And I would not underestimate her appeal to Republican primary voters.
Okay. Amie, last chance, or you can just chime in
Maybe
whenever.
Ron DeSantis. I mean, look what he's trying to do on redistricting. He's trying to get back in the game on that. I think he was disappointed, obviously, about what happened the last time around. He's always had his eye on the presidency. So I think Ron
Okay.
DeSantis.
Anybody want to explain to me why no one said Glenn Youngkin?
You know, he could be underestimated. He could have a shot. He's the suburban Republican candidate who's in his fleece vest shopping at Whole Foods. So he's a little soft, but we've seen him in Virginia take off the fleece vest and fight. And he fought, against guys in girls' sports. He fought against critical race theory in schools. He's fought wokeism. So, and he could go to his buddies on in the investment world, raise some cash. So
Yeah.
if he can turn up, if Mitt Romney could turn up his MAGA translator, he could be Glenn Youngkin, and
Yeah.
there might be a shot, not a great one.
Yeah. All right, let's go to your questions. As always, unmute, tell us where you are, what's on your mind for Amie, John, Allen, and Alex. Janet, you first, please.
Me?
Yes, ma'am.
I think what you have to realize, Trump being the populist, he's written the playbook for both parties. And it's not going to change very, very soon. Might be as far as Rubio and the vice president, Rubio's been around longer to the public, to the people. And I think he relates better to them. Despite Vance's background, I think Rubio does. Originally, I'm from Boston, and I came down to Florida full-time around 1992. So I've watched Rubio as he has grown, his ups and his downs, and he's a great speaker. So he's got a few notches above Vance at this particular point in time.
Okay, Janet. Thank you, Janet. Lots there. Amie, thoughts on any of the stuff Janet mentioned?
I mean, I agree. I do think he's set up in the right place. I think that he's well spoken. I think he appeals to a lot of people. I think he's grown in this role a lot. And if you would have asked me this a few years ago, I would have probably said no. But I do think that I think we should all be watching for him.
What I meant about Trump came up always relating to the common man. He couldn't be where he is today without doing that. He couldn't have built what he built in New York at that time because things were controlled by the unions. And he had to speak their language, and he did very well. And their likes and dislikes, and he's brought it right with him. Every time he goes into a fight or a car race or whatever it is that he does, he's relating to Middle America. And Middle America, thank God, over the years, not always, has kept our countries on the straight and narrow, from my perspective.
Okay. Jonathan, any comments on what Janet said?
Yeah, I mean, and this ties into what Alex was saying before. I mean, Marco Rubio is clearly an improved player over time. He's somebody who has learned, somebody who's adapted, somebody who has figured out, I think, more who he is as a public official and candidate. So, I think he's strong. But if Donald Trump endorses J.D. Vance, it's all over.
Yeah. Alex.
I agree with Janet, and Rubio has the advantage of being a Cuban, which we know carries a lot of weight.
And he came over at that time. He's got a lot behind him. A lot of money behind him there.
Janet, thank you. Very grateful to you. Thank you for being part of Two-Way. All right, Fred, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind for our trio here. You got to unmute, Fred. Here you go.
Good. Well, I'm this month I'm out in Waynesville, North Carolina, the gateway to the Blue Ridge Mountains. Last time I talked to you, Mark, I was in Lake Tahoe. I ran in the 52nd district in California. As my kids say, Gavin Newsom and Kamala are both bots of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party in California is extremely strong now, the last couple decades, where the Republicans have been pretty impotent. And the transition of people over to Nevada, that's the same thing that's happened there. I don't think Gavin Newsom's very popular, and Kamala isn't either, and they're both products of the system, as the way I see it. Kamala, black, female, Willie Brown supported her through everything. Gavin Newsom's got Congresswoman Pelosi, who organized all that. I don't think they're going to do well nationally, and Kamala didn't, and I don't think Gavin's going to be very well off in Midwest and even in the Northeast, where I grew up. He's just not very well thought of in California. And during COVID, he got very discredited for a lot of different things. So I think he's going to have a big problem. As far as the Republicans go, I think if you look at what Rubio has become from the 2016 debates to now, nothing ruffles him. He is a tough dude now, mature, articulate, and so I think he's got a very good chance.
John Allen?
Yeah, I mean, the untested, one of the untested things about Gavin Newsom is the test we just saw with Kamala Harris, which is like, how do you handle having done some extremely liberal things before? But if you were one of the Democratic candidates trying to make a decision on whether to run, what you have to figure out is, can you win the primary? Because anybody who wins a major party nomination has an almost even chance of winning the presidency. So, if you're Newsom, that's what you're looking at. And you're trying to game that out, and you will have some advantages coming in, including having bigger name ID than most of the other people that want to run, if not all of the other people that want to run, having the ability to raise a shit ton of money, and being good on your feet. I mean, this is a guy that goes onto Fox News. It's a guy who does a podcast with Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk, who's on the Democratic side, who goes through those things, and people walk away saying, "Hey, this guy's a little smarter than I thought. This guy's a little more reasonable than I thought." And we'll see if he runs, whether he's able to translate that on a national stage. I should say, if he runs and wins the Democratic primary.
Yeah, Fred, thank you. Grateful to you. Go ahead, Alex.
No, I was going to say that Fred made the point that some of these candidates are unpopular. No, all these candidates are unpopular. They're in politics. Government sucks. They're selling a product that doesn't work. The days where candidates had these huge soaring numbers and maintained them forever, we don't live in that world anymore. So at some point we put them into the arena. The lions eat a few of them. The gladiators kill a few. It's not going to be a popularity contest that somebody's going to, just bathe in milk and come out smelling like a rose.
All right, joining us, Michael Graham, aka Mr. New Hampshire. Michael is a close observer of the New Hampshire scene and is deluded, like most people I know who live in the Granite State, to think that his primary will matter in 2028. Michael, welcome.
First question that matters is, what are the two gentlemen smoking? That's what I really want to know. That's my top question. My second question is, look, I grew up in South Carolina, ran campaigns down there. Obviously, black voters are key. Buttigieg has a major problem. I've never seen poll numbers that bad, other than for maybe David Duke among the black community. But who's going to pick the nominee, Mark Halperin? I'll tell you who. It's going to be suburban, white, college-educated women who are the unstoppable force in the Democratic Party right now, and they are crazy. And where do they live? They live in the suburbs of Boston. They dominate New Hampshire Democratic politics. 4 members of the federal delegation, they have not had a straight white male since 2014 because of the identity politics and the white liberal guilt and all the different forces in there. And so my question to you is there any force in 2028 that'll be more important than suburban white college educated women?
Amie, for some reason, I'm calling on you first. I can't figure out why.
Why Amie?
I definitely a huge, powerful demographic. But I do think, as I said before, Black women also huge. I think both of those two demographics are going to have a huge, huge say in who the nominee is. And I think Gavin Newsom, someone like Gavin Newsom, will appeal to suburban women in a lot of ways, and I think he has that going for him.
Jonathan.
I am smoking an AJ Fernandez New World double Corona.
Yes.
And
good choice.
What does that retail? What does that retail for?
Well, I usually get it for about $9 in a store, but I got a little online marketplace I go through that makes them a little cheaper. And then I want to distance myself from my friend Michael and just say that I don't think that all white suburban women are crazy because, you know, I know some of them and love some of them. And
I let it slide because I thought it was so off base that no one would take it seriously.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Always a wise choice.
Alex, what are you smoking and what does it retail for? Probably triple what Jonathan's smoking.
It's a Padron 50th anniversary, and I don't even know.
Yeah, no, that the 50th anniversary is probably about 10 or 12 times what I'm smoking.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I love those.
I've got I got a box of 45s I bought from Padron's nephew who works at the place in Miami. I met him a few weeks ago. They're super
Wonderful
good.
smoke.
But obviously, with the overstatement aside, I mean, you think about the money that suburban white college educated women can bring. You think about the immediate influence. I mean, look at why do you read what you read in the New York Times, the Washington Post that makes you go, don't they understand they're undermining their own brand? It's content written for that audience. And I just, you know, obviously every group counts to a certain degree, but I think that their influence is outsized their numbers and is very harmful. It's back in the days when the Tea Party people were out front and center for the Republican Party hitting the brand, I think.
And I would say briefly that as working class men, white men, Black men, Hispanics leave the Democratic Party, that makes the group you're talking about even stronger. So it's going to be a big dividing line in 28.
All right, Michael, thank you. We're going to end with a round robin and just real quick answers here for a number of questions. Super curious to see what you guys say. If J.D. Vance is endorsed by Donald Trump, how much will he raise by June 1st of 2028? J.D. Vance, and I'm counting Super PAC. How much will he raise? Alex?
$1 billion.
John Allen?
More than $1 billion. But right track there with Alex. I'd say 1.25.
Yeah, Amie?
Yeah, I think elections are getting even more and more, people are getting more and more money. I would say even higher than that.
Yeah, the correct answer is over $2 billion.
Damn it,
Over
just
$2 billion.
stop doing campaigns.
Over $2 billion, but none of it will go to paid media. It'll all go to web videos. Will the first 3 contests, nominating contests in 2028, in whatever states they're in, will the parties vote on the same day? Will the Democratic and Republican contests be on the same day? All 3 of the first 3. Amie?
No.
Alex?
It would make no sense to me to give up media.
Jonathan?
No, they won't even be the same states.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. And who will Barack Obama support in 2028? Jonathan Allen?
The winner of the Democratic nomination, as he always does. That guy guy wants so hard to be liked that he will refuse to get involved early.
Alex?
First and foremost, Barack Obama. Then Jonathan's right.
Yeah. Amie?
Alex stole my answer. Barack Obama. He's very big on protecting his own brand.
Leaving AOC aside, who's the most likely strong female Democratic presidential candidate in 2028? Leaving AOC aside. Alex? Whitmer. Okay. Alex?
I would say somebody more progressive. I don't know if that's AOC or Parker, but
No, I'm saying leave AOC aside.
Oh,
Parker. Who's Parker?
Who's that congresswoman from California? They all look alike to me. They have so many congressmen these days.
Yeah, they do have a lot. Jonathan, strongest female candidate.
Abigail Spanberger.
All
Good
right.
choice.
Good choice. Good choice.
And also Mikey, Mikey.
Cheryl from New Jersey.
Mikey
Cheryl.
Who will the most in-demand Democratic surrogate be amongst potential presidential candidates in 2026? Who will be the most in demand for campaigning and fundraising? Amie.
Michelle Obama, still.
No, of potential presidential candidates.
Probably Newsom.
Alex.
Newsom.
Jonathan.
Newsom.
Who will be the most available Democratic presidential candidate to campaign and raise money in 2026?
Peter Buttigieg.
Peter Buttigieg is the correct answer. Alex?
That's the correct answer.
Yes.
But I'd say Shapiro.
All right. Amie.
Yeah, I was gonna say Shapiro.
Yeah, but he's going to be running for re-election, so I don't
Yeah.
know that he'll be as in demand as available. I think Pete Buttigieg will show up anywhere, anytime,
Yeah.
to raise money for people.
The
What will
Lake County Democratic City Council races, he'll be there.
What will the first sanctioned Democratic contest? What state will hold the first Democratic sanctioned contest? Sanctioned meaning approved by the DNC. Michael Graham, it's not New Hampshire. Shut up.
South Carolina.
South Carolina, Alex. Amie says South Carolina. Jonathan.
Georgia.
Ooh, anybody want to revise and extend that? Which senator is the most likely to be a strong presidential candidate for the Democrats? Alex.
Fetterman.
Amie.
Fetterman has me curious. I'm stumped on this one. John, what do you think?
Gallego.
Yeah, maybe Gallego.
Yeah. Okay. Lastly,
he's not handlered yet. You know, he hasn't been advised so much to not be himself, and I think that's a strength.
Okay. Reminder that if you want to read past his prologue, if you want to read about the last campaign, there's only one book to read. All the others, pretenders, fakers, phonies, Fight Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House by Jonathan Allen and Parnes, available still and now at your finer bookstores. Anything you two acclaimed authors wish to say about the book?
I
think you said it all, Mark. It's the one.
I think it's still the most, and I'm not just saying this because I co-authored this book, but it's the most comprehensive book of the election. And if you have questions on it, it answers those questions.
Does it have footnotes?
Footnotes, yeah, well, not footnotes. It has after notes, in the back of the book.
Yeah, good.
It does not have an index, Mark.
It's not have an index. That's good. Just like the
I believe James Page also did not have an index.
Just like the Warhol Diaries. That's true. All right. Reminder that this program, Two-Way Tonight, as well as the morning meeting, now available as a podcast. If you'd like to listen to the program, including on double speed, which many of you enjoy, you can always still watch it on YouTube, but you can also listen to it as a podcast on Apple and Spotify. I guess I should have pointed out, because I'm still getting used to communicating simultaneously to the podcast audience that yes, John Allen and Alex were puffing on stogies virtually the entire program. Very grateful to Amie, Jonathan, and Alex, the fourth member of their quartet who is not here. Her name will not be spoken, but we hope she comes back soon. And grateful to you all for being part of the Two-Way community. Thank you for convening. Have a great weekend. To see you Monday morning, 9 a.m. for the morning meeting. Good night.